It's the home of Shakespeare, football, and mushy peas. It's a place of happy valleys and friends in the north. It's gritty, outlandish. It's a cracker. If it has a heartbeat, you'll find it here.
Well, hello. Thank you for joining me. This stream probably won't be as long as I thought it was going to be because I was to have a panel of guests and none of them are here. So things come up. People get commitments. It is a Saturday night. I'm always very grateful when people give up their time to come on. Yeah, I was going to do a fairly in-depth look about The Crown. I'm probably not going to do that because there's no point saying, hey, what's your favorite episode? And that kind of thing. So I'll stick to, I've already done a review of the first 4 episodes of season 6, which I did on Thursday late night, right after I'd finished watching, straight after actually, Gut Reaction. I've had time to think about it a bit more now, and I've watched all the episodes twice. I've watched one of them 3 times, which is episode 4. So let's get into it, and I'll tell you my thoughts about this season overall. First of all, I mean, in terms of the show, I'm a huge fan of the show. I was actually watched the whole thing in 2 days when it first came out, binged season 1. Thought it was an incredible piece of British filmmaking, British television. And they've never quite been able to top season 1. Probably had one of the best opening episodes of a television show ever. Really big epic feel, fantastic casting. I mean, the cast are just first class. And I went to an event where they showed some clips right after it had screened, and some of the cast were there, the producers were there, and I actually got to ask a question in the Q&A, which was for the producer. You know, now you've achieved this incredibly high standard production, what's next? And they talked a bit about season 2 and so on. So I'm just going to go through them in order a little bit rather than talk about the new series. Overall, I like the first 4 episodes of season 6, but they're not without issue. I feel the events of episode 4 are a little bit rushed. I feel we could have seen a bit more. There are things that were not covered in the movie The Queen, which I was hoping were going to be covered here, and we didn't get them, which was a bit of a shame. Some of those things included, I thought there might be more discussion about the fact that the paparazzi were complicit in Diana's death in terms of the physical chasing. They were actually shown as almost as not being present when the accident happened, which is completely untrue. I didn't feel that they set up something with one of the characters who was a photographer who was selling photos for a lot of money, but that wasn't really followed up. It was a big storyline that then didn't really go anywhere. So season 6 thus far, it's good, but it's not the best season, and I feel that it was a little bit rushed. It feels like everyone's rushing to finish the show before anything else dramatic happens in the story. Okay, so going back, season 1 is definitely the best season, in my opinion. 10 episodes, first broadcast in November 2016. Essentially, the first episode is really introducing us to all the characters of the royal family, and the main story thread is the resignation of the potential next king from his position in order that he may move in with his American lover, which then changes entirely who's in line for the throne. That's the Wolferton Splash episode. Hyde Park Corner, which is the code name for If the King Dies, is really revolves around the funeral and all the events that follow. Yeah, season 1 really strong. Season 2 was okay, but it wasn't amazing. I felt that on the whole, I mean, the majority of the story, you've still got most of the main actors. You've still got Claire Foy as Elizabeth, Matt Smith, Vanessa Kirby in there, Jeremy Northam, Greg Wise, Alex Jennings, Leah Williams, and so on. Anton Lesser, Matthew Good also turn up. Jared Harris is there kind of in a flashback, but mainly covers the Suez crisis and some stuff with the Profumo affair and the changes in government there. The stuff about the Suez is handled really well. Just gives you quite a good overview of what was going on, certainly from the perspective of the royal family and that kind of thing. So I like season 2. The narrative about Suez is probably the best part of it. Season 3 was very disappointing for me. There's a really outstanding episode on the Aberfan disaster. For those people who don't know what that is a town in Wales where a huge piece of slag heap, which is the stuff that comes out of the mines and things, which was piled up on the side of the mountain, broke away because of the rain, came tumbling down towards the town and struck the school like an avalanche, killed a whole generation of children. So the town was absolutely distraught, and the Queen didn't visit the town, but Philip did, and it was really felt that the Queen should have gone, and that was a big regret. But the rest of season 3 really revolves around a few things. There's some deaths of things like Churchill and stuff like that, and presidential visits and the moon landing and whatnot. But on the whole, it's not as gripping as the previous seasons. It's the debut of Olivia Colman as the Queen, and she's excellent, really good. In fact, the cast are always outstanding. Season 4 really covers the span of the early years of Margaret Thatcher's 11-year premiership, covers the Falklands War and some other things. Season 4 picked up for me. I thought it was good, particularly the scenes with Gillian Anderson playing Thatcher. Really liked it. I think season 4 for me was probably the strongest after season 1. So I think season 1, then 4, probably my 2 top contenders. Great actors in it, and fantastic location work as always. You've got people like Richard Roxburgh turning up as the the Premier of Australia, this kind of thing. So there's some really good supporting cast as well in the show for the first time. Gillian Anderson, as I mentioned already. Helen Bonham Carter comes in. Season 5, prior to this, is really the season that introduces us to Diana and focuses on the relationship between her and Charles, their marriage, and then the disintegration of their marriage. And that's really what it's about, and Diana's panorama interview. I mean, we do meet Diana towards the end of season 4. I think she's briefly introduced to us as Charles's fiance, and I think actually, yeah, the wedding is actually depicted towards the end of season 4. That's right. Season 5 really focuses on the marital difficulties that they have. There were some other good things in season 5. It's pretty strong. There's a large recasting, and I like everybody. Imelda Staunton is perfectly fine as the Queen. I feel she's leaning towards pantomime villain in the writing by the time we get to season 5, unfortunately. Hi, Copa. I should have had 2 people on with me doing this, but unfortunately, they both dropped out. So it's just me. So yeah, you know, there's the handover of Hong Kong. We've got the beginnings of Tony Blair's premiership. Tony Blair in season 5. I'm not sure if he's played by the same actor. Bertie Cavill. Does he play him in season 6 as well? Let me have a look. Oh, he does. Okay, yeah, we haven't seen that much of him. I think he's got a couple of brief scenes in season 6. So I would say season 1, then season 4, then season 5 for me. Probably then season 2, then season 3, because the ABBA fan episode is way better than any of the episodes that we've had in season 6 so far. And then season 6. Season 6 is fine. That's not a condemnation, by the way. Season 6 is very good. So my overall opinion of this show is it's first class British television. It definitely deserves to be in the best of British. It's got excellent writing, excellent casting, and so on. Abby, if you're a big fan of the Crown and you fancy coming on talking about it, get in touch with me on Facebook and I'll send you the link and you can jump on. So yeah, excellent writing, excellent casting. I mean, the casting for this show has been first class all the way through. They've never had an actress or actor playing a role where I've gone, not sure about that. I think we're all going to have our favourites, like, you know, favourite actress that played the Queen, favourite actor that's played Charles, and so on. I was going to discuss these with my guests, but I don't have any, so I'll just tell you mine. My favourite actress who's played the Queen, without a doubt, is Claire Foy. I think that's the most difficult version of the Queen to play because she is the most far removed from the history that we know. The one going the furthest back in time. You've got to play her kind of losing her innocence and her to some degree her personality to the role, and Claire Foy does that incredibly well. My favorite actor playing Charles by a mile is Dominic West, who's currently playing Charles. He's got the most difficult scenes with Diana's death and so on. He's an actor that I really like, but he's really taken to this role. He's really done his homework. He's got his nuances, but he's also he's playing him very believably, because Charles is always like quite a conflicted character in The Crown, and I think Dominic West plays him with a real believable level of emotion that's very convincing. There's not many actors that could play him. I mean, first of all, you've got to cast someone who kind of looks a little bit like him. Dominic West is a very complimentary version of Prince Charles, but because he's much more dashing. But yeah, I mean, he's fantastic in the role. I have to say as well that the actresses who've played Diana, I think there's 2 of them in total, also really good. So yeah, Dominic West, my favourite. Charles, Claire Foy, my favourite. Princess / Queen Elizabeth. My other favourite actor in the show is probably Jared Harris, who played the King, and Claire Foy's dad, effectively, in the show. Jared Harris, many people may not realise this, but he's actually the son of the late Richard Harris, Richard Harris has been in a number of my favourite films of all time, like The Wild Geese, and he's also did Golden Rendezvous and various other movies. Jared is every bit his father's son. He's as talented as his dad. By some, I would say almost, maybe even more so. So Copa is saying that, hang on, let me put this up on the thing. Fantastic actor. I thought it said fantasy actor. I was thinking, is he? What fantasy films has he been in? Yeah, of course, he's also in Chernobyl. He plays the lead role in Chernobyl. You may or may not have seen that. He's absolutely amazing in it. Here he is in The Crown. I'll put him up for you. Hold on. Just get that up here. Oh, there's 5 people watching. That's nice. You're keeping me on because I wasn't going to do this for very long. But because I really was, this was supposed to be a kind of a round table stream talking about The Crown with some guests rather than me just rattling on. But you'll have to put up with me rattling on. Hang on. I've just got to make sure this doesn't switch itself off. Yeah. Okay, good. Let me just go back. There we go. Lovely. Thank you. Yeah. So Jared Harris on the right, every bit the King, with the lovely Queen Elizabeth about to get married. And, you know, it's nice that he was around for that. Yeah, Chernobyl probably is his pinnacle role. Yeah, because he plays the lead in that, so he's amazing. In terms of the other cast, I think it's important to look at the casting directors when you're talking about this kind of stuff. And the casting director on The Crown, it's going to be one of the biggies. I forget who it is, but let me have a look. It's going to be like Susie Figgis or someone like that. Come on, my God, this cast list is immense. Immense cast list. Okay, here we go. Series casting: Nina Gold and Rob Stern. So Rob Stern doing, I think, in conjunction with Nina Gold. Now, Nina Gold is one of the biggest casting directors in the UK. She's cast things like Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker, The King's Speech, Attack the Block, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Well, you know, you can't have them all, love, can you? You can't have them all. Empire of Light, fantastic. I mean, she's got over 200 credits on IMDb. If we go back sort of earlier in her career, you'll see she's cast stuff like the BFG, for example, In the Heart of the Sea, The Danish Girl, The Martian, Child 44, Black Sea, Paddington, A Long Way Down, The Vatican, Dom Hemingway, The World's End, Jack the Giant Slayer, Les Miserables, the film version, obviously, Prometheus, You know, Jane Eyre. I mean, the list goes on. And the list does go on quite substantially. She cast Red Riding, which is a show I've got to do a stream about. Yeah, it's an impressive CV. And funnily enough, the first thing that she ever cast was Smashy and Nicey, The End of an Era. Most people won't even know what that is, but it's a great film with Paul Whitehouse and Harry Enfield, where they're parodying two British DJs and radio disc jockeys, and sort of it's shot like a documentary, where they're being interviewed about their life, and they parody a lot of other sort of people of that time. Like here we're parodying Noel Edmonds with his jumpers and that kind of thing. And then they do these like rip-offs of adverts, and at one point they're presenting Top of the Pops. This is when they're doing it in the 70s. I'm sidetracking here a little bit, but it's well worth. It's a film. It's only about 50 minutes. It's a film that's well worth seeing if you ever want to track it down. Yeah, I really do like that movie. It's based on two characters from a TV comedy show. The other thing that makes The Crown stand out over, or another reason I'd put it in the best of British, is not just the casting and for the most part the writing. It's also the standard of production. So we're talking about a period show not for the most part, entirely it's a period show. So nothing, all the clothes and everything have to, match the appropriate time periods. And you're not talking small scenes. You're not talking small potatoes here. You're talking big scenes with lots of extras in some cases. It's really things like the makeup, the hair, all of that stuff. And there's so much reference material out there. So if people get it wrong, they're going to get crucified. They have to get it right. The show, even though these are fictional depictions of these characters, you have to believe that they're real. That's really important for this show. You have to believe that they're real. What's Copa saying? Cecilia is watching Lance with me. She wants more princesses. Well, I'm getting into that now. Vanessa Kirby is first class in this. I think she's an amazing actress. Now, on the left, playing the Queen Mum here is Victoria Hamilton. Victoria Hamilton is a friend of mine, and she is married to actor Mark Baisley. They have a wonderful little boy. And I remember that when Mark came back, because they used to live just one street away from me, so door to door, about 200 meters. And I think they've moved now. But I remember it was snowing, and Mark came running through the snow, and he saw me, came running up to me and gave me a big hug. And I said, "What is it?" He said, "Oh, I've just had a little boy." And I was just coming back from the shop, which was really sweet. It's quite nice to be able to share that moment with him. That's a still from more recent production. Claire Foy. I think Claire Foy coming out of her dressing room. I'm not sure why that picture's on IMDb. Kind of spoils the illusion a bit there. So Claire Foy and Matt Smith in season 1 there. Matt Smith, phenomenal in this. I think probably also my favourite actor that's played that character in the show, I think. In the chat, I'd love to know who is your favourite actress that has played the Queen so far. You have got 3 to choose from. Claire Foy, Imelda Staunton, and of course the wonderful, oh my God, why has it just gone out my head? While I'm live, no less. Matt Smith on the set of The Crown, listening to his iPod. or phone, indeed. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Bless her. She's got a busted arm there. I wonder what happened there. So, some of these on-set production stuff is quite revealing when you look at how the wedding was shot, for example. You know, and now Gillian Anderson as Margaret Thatcher, just incredible. Olivia, what's her name, is the other actress. So who's your favourite? Gillian Anderson was a surprising choice to play Margaret Thatcher. I would not have put her. She would not have been in my head as someone who could do that role. I could have seen her playing later when she was younger. I could have seen her playing Diana, actually, but she's one of the best. We've had a lot of really good actresses play Margaret Thatcher, and this is one of the best portrayals of Thatcher that I've ever seen. And I really liked her in this. Helen Bonham Carter, wife of Tim Burton. So there's Emma Corrin as Lady Diana Spencer. So that's not the same actress who's playing her now. I think one of my friends is in one of these scenes, but let's get some other. Let's just get a different page up. More production stills rather than kind of behind the scenes. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so there's Pip Torrens. He's a great actor, really good actor. Victoria Hamilton again. There's one of the storylines, for example, I think I think it's in season 2, is there's a whole subplot with the Queen Mum about purchasing a crumbling ruin of a castle on the coast up in Northumbria or Scotland or somewhere. And I think that was a bit of a scandal. I think she sunk quite a lot of what really should have been public money into that. But they sort of set that up, but they never really follow it up. John Lithgow is a phenomenal actor. I like his Churchill. There's been a lot of good actors that have played Churchill, including Gary Oldman. I think John Lithgow's Churchill is probably closer to Churchill than Oldman's amazing performance. But I also liked Albert Finney as Churchill. I think he did one of the best Churchills I've ever seen. I met Jeremy Northam as well once at a party. He was very nice. So I think this is all the stuff that was filmed in Malta. And I think they filmed. I think these lads are actually these extras. I think some of them were actually from the Royal Navy, but I might be wrong about that. Yeah, I mean all of this sort of stuff. Shortest honeymoon in history. Very sad. There's the wonderful Alex Jennings and Leah Williams, who I have met after she did a play in London, which a friend of mine was in. Alex Jennings is a fantastic actor. Look at that suit. And the pugs. Jared Harris again. Yeah. You know, the production value on this show, just, you know, in any shot is always really good. The vistas for Scotland, Balmoral, quite incredible. Now, it might just be me, but if I can enlarge this picture, no. That looks like row upon row upon row of portaloos in the background there. On the right. I mean, can't be, can it? Certainly don't remember seeing them. That's what it looks like, though. That's a bit like a coffee cup in on the cost a cup of coffee on the table in Game of Thrones. You remember that? Oh dear. Yeah, portaloos would not have been around in that design at this time. Yeah, bless him, Matt Smith. Gotta love him. I really, really rate him as an actor. Now, I'm not sure where they shot this scene. I want to say it was probably Kenya. Yeah, I mean, again, season 1 and season 2 with Claire Foy, for me, I love this where they go and they're on their Commonwealth tour, I think, and of course Prince Philip was known for making very inappropriate comments when he did this sort of thing. He would I mean, look, he was old school, and was who he was, but yeah, he could really offend people sometimes. And then there was a lot of people who just sort of knew that he was, he was kind of a harmless, slightly out of touch character, with a fair bit of slightly racist views, I would say. Annabelle Million, I forget who she played in the show. Let's take that down for a sec. Boom. Yeah, so we've got the next 4 episodes coming out in I think it's December 14th. I will be doing a stream about those. Olivia Colman, my God, how did I forget that name? I will be doing a stream about them, and my hope. I've seen the trailer for and it's obviously going to focus on William and Harry, particularly William, and him meeting Kate Middleton. Yeah, I'm not too sure about how fast everything's been condensed. I wonder how far the time jump's going to go on the next episode, but I think we're probably going to be starting sometime around 2001, 2002, something like that. But we'll see. Bit of Glasnost here. Let's have a look at some other productions era. So again, Margaret Thatcher. This actor was very good. Played someone who sort of had a brief romance with Diana Neely, I think. I liked the younger actor who played Charles, Josh O'Connor. Thought he was very talented. He was recently in the BBC production based on the book by the All Creatures Great and Small guide about the family living in Corfu. It's a very pleasant show. Doesn't she look? Emma Corrin looks just like Jodie Foster in that shot. Now here we have Tobias Menzies and Olivia Colman sort of taking over the mantle. This is kind of the era of the age that I always remember the Queen being. This kind of look. And that hairstyle was extremely popular in the late 70s going into the 80s. And there was a woman who lived over the road from me called Joyce Rowland. Had a wonderful husband called Rex. We always used to call him Uncle Rex and Auntie Joyce. And she had that hairdo from the day I met her. I don't think it ever changed. And she kind of had massive smile. Deeply Christian woman, but a really lovely person. Yeah, I had 2 wonderful sons, Paul and I forget the name of the other one. So Tobias Menzies, I thought very good as Prince Philip. I really did like the scenes with Gillian Anderson and when she goes up to Balmoral and she's like, "What am I doing here with these people? I should be back running the country." And it was a really good, moment. Yeah, Olivia Colman is definitely, a lot of people call her a national treasure now. I have to say, I think that's true. She definitely is. Imelda Staunton. Now, I've got to say something about Elizabeth Debicki. Elizabeth Debicki totally embodied Diana as we knew her, as a woman rather than as a girl, or rather than as a princess. Totally embodied her. Really, really nailed the voice. Just a fantastic actress. I was very impressed with her performance. Johnny Lee Miller was a nice surprise as John Major. Now, you wouldn't think sitting in that chair is the man who originally started shooting Aragorn's scenes in Lord of the Rings. You wouldn't think that, but that is him. I think the young boys that play Harry and William are very good. Really like them. Celine Dor is good as Mohammed Al Fayed. I think his character is written with not a lot of nuance, and I don't think the script serves the actor as well as it could have done. He starts becoming a bit pantomime villain in season 6, but then so does the Queen also. Jonathan Pryce is a good Prince Philip, but I think I preferred Tobias Menzies in the role. Matt Smith, amazing as the younger version of him. Yeah, difficult to call out which one of those three I think is the best. By the way, if you don't know, John Major was considered to be our most boring and wooden, uncharismatic prime minister we've ever had in recent times. These boys did well, I think. And so they didn't have a lot to do, the younger lads, but they did well. This is, of course, when Windsor Castle has a fire. I think that happened in, I want to say that happened in 87. And that wasn't a good year for me either, actually. Yeah. So, Timothy Dalton, former Bond there. Cracking guy. Natasha McAlone. Yeah, she's all right. She's in an Irish role. She's good. I absolutely love Leslie Manville on the left here. She actually rang my landline and left me a message about my script that I'd sent her, and it was a really, really complimentary message. It was very kind. So yeah, so season 6 overall. Okay, let me just summarize quickly because I'm going to end this. Season 6 overall so far, first half is okay, but it's not without its problems. And there are some really good things. The really good things are the casting, flawless to a role. These two lads in particular, Rufus Camper being one of them, exceptionally good. I'm also very impressed with Khalid Abdullah playing Dodi. I think he plays Dodi's complexities exceptionally well. Really like him in the role. Do I feel that there's some things that are missing? Yes. Do I feel it's a bit rushed? Yes. Is the Queen becoming a bit of a pantomime villain? Yes. Could it be played with a bit more nuance? Yes. Has the quality of the writing dropped since earlier seasons? I don't know if it's enough to say it's dropped. I just feel it's being rushed. I think everybody's in a rush to. This is the last season, you know. And I think if they only do 8 episodes, that'd be a big shame because most seasons have been 10. I want to say. We'll just double check that quickly. But I think so. Yeah, so season 5 was 10 episodes. Okay, season 6 is going to be 10 episodes. I've just checked. So we've got 6 episodes dropping on the 14th of December. Right, I'm going to do an all-nighter that night. So that'd be fun. I always used to watch the Crown with my ex-partner. That was something we did every season. I really miss doing that. Yeah. So, yeah, I think overall first half of season 6 is an 8, 7.5 actually out of 10. Season 1 for me is a 10 out of 10. Season 2, 7. Season 3, 7.5. Season 4 is an 8.5. Season 5 is an 8. Season 6 so far, 7.5. That's what I think of the show overall. Getting Nerds, who was going to be one of the people on with me tonight, but unfortunately had a family matter, had to cancel. Great summary tonight, Lance. Look forward to part 2. Oh, my other guest. I was literally just about to end the stream.
Oh, were you?
Well, I'll stay on a bit longer now you're here because I was thinking I'm supposed to have a panel of guests and I'm talking to myself. I can only do this for so long, you know. So I was just about to wrap it up. But let's. I'll tell you what. I've said my views on a number of things. So why don't I ask you all the same questions?
Okay.
And then you can tell me. And this is our own from Positive Fandom. I'm sure my huge viewing figures of 4 know who she is and are probably already subscribing. So I'd like to know, first of all, of the 3 actresses. So we have Claire Foy playing the Queen when she's younger.
Yeah.
We have Olivia Colman as the sort of middle Queen. And then we have Imelda Staunton playing the Queen now. Do you have a favorite, and if so, who?
I'm going to say it's Olivia Colman, and certainly that look of the Queen is the one I'm most familiar with. Of course, we do remember Claire Foy did a wonderful job of the young Queen, and I certainly have to congratulate her. I think she has won awards for that role, BAFTAs and Emmys and everything.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, absolutely, and well deserved.
Absolutely. But I think Olivia Colman certainly captured a different essence of the Queen that I haven't seen before. And I love how stoic she was in this role, oftentimes having to deal with the tremendous amount of change, especially during that period in her life that took place around the world. I think it was all eyes were on her then more than ever, in a manner that is undescribable. Nobody on earth had eyes on them like that as Queen Elizabeth did during that era. So I have to give it to Elizabeth Colman for being my favorite, let's say,
Olivia Colman.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, as Elizabeth.
Yes.
So Prince Philip, do you have a favorite between Matt Smith, Tobias Menzies, and currently it's Jonathan Pryce?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Jonathan Pryce.
Oh, interesting.
And the reason why is because although this is absolutely not true, it feels as if Prince Philip was more available to us, let's say on this side of the pond, as he got older. And we learned more about Prince Philip, and there was more focus on him. Maybe it was the media's choice, maybe it was his choice, who knows? But I was so impressed with what I envisioned as the Prince Philip that I was most familiar with, as he was much older, and felt, we got to sort of know his personality more. I thought that the performance in the latter years really showed us a different side that we didn't see here. And certainly a lot of people here, not everybody, view Prince Philip, kind of like as the companion to the Queen, which he is. But I think having this point of view of him and this individuality that came out and the latter end of his life in this show was unmatched by the other two versions. So for me, I'm going to say it was the last depiction of him there.
Well, I would agree with you that the portrayal of the Queen, Olivia Colman, is definitely the one I'm the most familiar with. Because she's the one that sort of I grew up with in that time. But my favourite depiction of the Queen in the show is definitely Claire Foy. I think also because season 1 is, we'll talk about this in a second, in my view, is still the strongest season by far. We get to see her play. She's the only one who gets to play the Queen with range, because she's the one who has the shift from, I'm going to have a relatively normal but quite self-entitled life with lots of rich parties and trips around the world and things, to, oh shit, I'm in a huge position of responsibility, because she was never in line to be Queen originally, of course. And that only happened because of the scandal with our future king sleeping with one of your lot.
And Lance, can you please tell me who played the father again, Queen Elizabeth's father in season 1? I can't remember the actor's name. I know he's in a lot of shows. My favorite.
You're talking about, and funnily enough, I talked about him at length because I was just talking about my favorite actors in the show. If you're talking about the King Who Dies, you're talking about Jared Harris.
He's such a wonderful actor, and I think that he certainly played that role with a lot of passion. It's difficult to play someone who's unwell and having, the weight of the world on their shoulders, and that's the truth. There's no other way to describe it. He became a representation of resilience and resolve, if you will, those are not my original words. I heard that in a show, but he really did become that. And certainly people looked towards him for that representation. It's not easy to do that role. Of course, we saw a wonderful version of it in the King's Speech, but I think that this was so important to see another side of it, I think, that we had not seen. And it was just spectacular. I didn't want his character to end. Of course, we had no choice because that's what happened. But I thought that was so important for us to see, that level of performance and also sacrifice that most people are not aware. They know that there is this king, British king, but they don't know all the details. When I say most people, especially in the United States, are not aware of it. So I thought it was such a beautiful performance, and certainly him with Claire Foy there at the wedding was just absolutely phenomenal. I felt like I was watching that video, the wedding video, just stunning.
In terms of supporting cast, and there's many actors to choose from. You've got John Lithgow, Vanessa Kirby, I mean, so many big names, and quite a few big names and quite a few small roles as well. Jared Harris is by far, for me, the strongest supporting cast member in the entire show, who's effectively a guest, because he completely embodies this role. He underplays him, which is perfect for who he was, because he was not a boastful kind of man. He was quite a reserved man, but he was. I mean, you've no idea how loved he was. He was so loved because he was the king that was there through the war.
I have a little bit of idea because my family's from Commonwealth countries. So, right. And I know that it's true. I was born in America and raised here, but I'm really kind of like the first generation on my father's side. And
we'll let you off.
Yeah. So, but just, to give you some perspective as to why I do love the monarchy and things of that nature. So, it is very interesting. Lance, we're so lucky to get this. We are so lucky to get these performances. And I know, I think it is very interesting because I remember when they were making the King's Speech and they said they had to wait. They had to wait. I think it was until the Queen Mother had passed, right, Lance? They didn't want to go ahead with that movie. And, there were a lot of considerations. This was very unique. There were a lot of considerations that were taken before they were going to go ahead with a lot of this.
No, that's not true about that film. Actually, that was gossip, but it's not true. So the King's Speech was produced as a low budget play for a theatre company that were going to perform it in London on the Fringe, and they did a table reading of the play. Actually, I think the table reading was in one of the main rooms that they actually used for the film, funnily enough. And somebody, I can't remember who, but somebody important ended up at that reading for whatever reason. I think somebody had read, one of the people that was the cast who was on the table read. None of, I don't think any of the actors were the same that were in the film. But word got around that this script was quite shit hot. So I think it was a producer just sort of contacted the theatre company and said, "Do you mind if I sit in on this table read for your play?" And this producer immediately, as soon as they saw it, they just said to whoever it was, the writer, "This is a movie. I want to buy the rights today." And and offered them quite a it's one of those sort of mythical tales where like studios getting a bidding war over a script. And this guy just thought, someone's going to make this, and I'm going to make sure it's me. And that's how it got. And it got made pretty soon after that. I think within a year they were in production. So there was, I mean, because it wasn't, that show wasn't, there wasn't anything in there that was really offensive to the Queen Mother. I think she would have been quite happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going by an article that was in a newspaper where I guess Seidler had some sort of contact with the Queen Mother, and that's what he was told. However,
I mean, it's possible
regarding the film specifically. So I don't know about the play, but what I'm talking about is an article that came out specifically addressing that issue. So while you're talking about the play, I'm talking about the movie in particular.
Well, I mean, but the movie was that's how the I mean, the King's Speech wasn't released until 2010. Okay, the Queen Mum died 8 years before that, in 2002. So so the story about them waiting for the Queen Mother to die before they could make the movie is not true. Because I know for a fact that how the movie got made was because of this play reading. The play reading happened only about a year or two before the film, and so this would have all happened after the Queen Mum was dead.
From an article that I read where they're saying that they were told she would find it too painful to remember all the old anguish and beg that they wait until she had passed away. So
that's weird.
Essentially what I'm trying to say, well, I do have the reference, so I'll give it to you.
I'm just going to check something else. Go on.
And so what I'm really getting at is that it's not always easy to go ahead and get productions like this. So, when you do get a production like this, you're very, very lucky. And, I also want to say that, I think we're very lucky that these talented actors have agreed to sort of, take part in this. It's not necessarily going to be, they're not doing this because it's going to be the highest paid thing out there. They're doing this because they themselves end up becoming part of history by taking on roles like this. And I think that is so important, because what we're seeing is that the majority of people who are watching this are not necessarily going to be people who are historians or interested in history. They know who the Queen is, and I think that it's important, if they do show some interest, that there be some kind of moving image media available for them to look at. And the Crown has certainly provided that. And I think in an abundance and in a manner that we haven't seen before. I haven't seen anything like this production. I think it's a spectacular production. And you know, I don't know if we're going to get something like this again, Lance.
I mean, I think we can if the will is out there to make it. There's other people have tried to make things like World on Fire is a BBC co-production that's kind of set during World War II. And unfortunately it's taken too many liberties with history. So most people that are really big fans of that genre are not big fans of that show. But that's a show that if it had been done the right way, could have been as big as The Crown. But they've not really. It's not really been done very, very well. Just to clarify your story, by the way, because I did a quick bit of digging. So what you're saying is correct. So what I said is sort of also correct, but the missing link is this: the writer started writing the script originally in the 80s, but couldn't find enough information about the king to make the script hang together. So he actually contacted the Queen Mother and asked if she would make the notebooks available to him so he could write that script. And the Queen Mother gave him permission to read the notebooks as research under the condition that the project was not made during her lifetime. So you're right about that. So this was all between the writer and the Queen Mother rather than the producer.
Remember, I'm paraphrasing this, Lance.
Yeah. So I that bit I wasn't familiar with. So
I wasn't familiar with it either, Lance. I had to read about it. So
this is all fascinating stuff. It's good. So she died 2002, and then the reading that I was talking about happened in 2005. They got it to Jeffrey Rush, and Gareth Unwin, who's the producer. I know him actually. He was in on that reading, and he received a 4-page email from Jeffrey Rush's manager admonishing them for breach of etiquette because they hand delivered the script to Jeffrey Rush's house, which was not very far away from one of the staff members who was involved in the reading. Anyway, but they turned. It was originally a two-handed play with just 2 actors in it in that room trying to get his voice correct. As Gareth says, it was turned from being a play about 2 grumpy men into something a lot bigger, which I think worked a lot better. So,
you know, what's so interesting about this, as I've said, is that this was so much more comprehensive than just a film. You know, I think that this is going to become known as one of the greatest miniseries of all time, if you will, based on the royal family. I don't know what else is out there that's like this, Lance, but I hope we get more. I hope we get more productions coming forward. And certainly, you know, being able to see this production come to life after hearing about it, after seeing how much work was put into it, it was wonderful. And it's very satisfying. There's ups and downs in it, like anyone's life, but it was so satisfying to see this finally captured in a way that I personally feel is respectful to the characters and you know, let's say a lot of many things that I did not know or didn't know the full story to, I found out, you know, by watching this, which was wonderful as well. And certainly, I think that if it's going to go to a point where there is, you know, this is for the most part a dramatization, I think that this is a wonderful version of what has been done. There are some parts that needed to be dramatized, to be put into context, that I would have not guessed I was going to see, Lance. I didn't know I was going to see the dramatizations I've seen. I was completely unaware of that and completely thrilled by it. Really thrilled.
Let me ask you some other questions that I covered before you came on, and give me short answers because there's a few of them.
Yes.
I don't want to go on too long. So, favorite actor that played Charles?
The last one, I can't remember his name. He's my absolute favorite actor.
Dominic West.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, in fairness to the others, and I think is it Josh O'Connor who played him before him? I might be getting his name wrong, but in fairness to the others, Dominic West does have the meaty stuff to do. He's got, you know, Diana's death and all that kind of thing. Josh O'Connor's got the beginnings of the marriage going on. Josh O'Connor did a very, very good job, though. I will say that. So do you have a favorite season, first of all?
Oh, wow. That's so hard to choose one,
I mean,
Lance.
I guess you can pick from 1 to 5 because we haven't seen all of season 6 yet.
I'm gonna say season 5.
I think season 5 was good. Season 1 is still my favorite. It's 1, then 4, then 5. 2 and 3 are about the same for me. The funny thing is that for the most part, I thought season 3 was quite flat, but it's got one of the best episodes of the entire show in it, which is the ABBA fan episode.
Yes. And Lance, I
And
knew nothing about that, so that was
yeah,
brand
it's.
new to me.
I remember being told about it as a kid. It happened before my time, but you know, it was something. It was one of those stories like adults would suddenly tell you, "Oh, you know, this whole generation of kids were killed," and we were like, "Kids were killed? What?" And then you sort of you go into the school playground and check to see there wasn't a mountain like near the school that could deposit huge slag heaps into your school. More of a concern if you live in Wales than in South London, I need to point out. But yeah, ABBA fan episode is, for me, is I think that episode and the episode where the king has died, those two are really fantastic because of the emotional seesaw in both of those episodes. I'm still find it hard to digest that the Queen didn't visit Aberfan, and I feel she should have gone back there at some point in her reign, and it's a bit of a shame that she didn't correct that mistake. But hey, what can you do? Busy woman with lots of responsibilities. Do you have a favorite character? Let's forget the king, because we all like Jared Harris. Do you have a favorite character outside of the immediate royal family that's been in the show? I'll give you another example. For example, Winston Churchill, as played by John Lithgow, certainly would be one of my favorites. You've got people like Charles Dance playing Mountbatten, but there were two actors that played Mountbatten. Gillian Anderson, who playing Thatcher. You've got Jason Watkins, Helen Bonham Carter playing the Queen's sister, Leah Williams and Alex Jennings playing the American lady who stole away the king. So you've got them. You've got Greg Wise playing one of the British prime ministers, Jeremy Northam playing another one.
It's hard to choose, and I'm going to tell you, it's actually two. I like the young Princess Margaret. She's a famous actress. I can't remember her name. And the man who she falls in love with, who I also am a big fan of because I loved him in Andor. So between the two of them, I thought they were wonderful.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Oh, there's more pictures of Mr. Harris. Mm-hmm. You are talking about, I think.
Is it Jessica
Kirby? Vanessa Kirby.
Vanessa Kirby.
And
the actor is
the actor. I've met him. I'm just his name, of course, now completely out of my
lovely chemistry. Lance, it felt like they were in love in this passionate affair. It was wonderful.
Yeah, because he plays the older man that she fell in love with.
Yeah.
Got a great shot of Vanessa Kirby here, who's a beautiful woman in reality, and yeah, she's. I mean, her career has gone. She's one whose career has gone off like a rocket since she started working. She has not stopped working, and she's constantly. The role is Peter Townsend. James Willard, thank you for that. Famous World War II Spitfire pilot, and no, I don't think she did marry him. She was forbidden from marrying him, Captain Townsend, and that was the thing that drove her apart from her sister. Because I mean, and she could have, if she had done so, because he was the problem with it wasn't that he was older. The problem was he was divorced. And back then, that was not the done thing. A royal member of the royal household. This is why the divorce of Charles and Diana caused such a massive scandal, because royals didn't get divorced, you know. She wasn't allowed to marry him because he'd already been married, and that was the only reason. And if she had, I think she would have been like her uncle. She would have been excommunicated probably. So they would have pushed her out. So yeah, so in the end, they kind of decided not to get married. I think if I remember rightly in the story, I think it's covered in, might have been season 5. If it wasn't that, it was season 4. We meet him again. He comes back. He's older.
Yes, he sends a letter to Margaret. It kind of engages her a little bit. And the actor who plays him, isn't it the Bond character? The guy who plays.
Yeah, it's Timothy Dalton who plays him when he's older. Who's a much better actor than I think a lot of people give him credit for.
Well, he looked amazing, you know, at any age, I have to say. I'm just absolutely captivated by him then.
He's got a fantastic role in this Taylor Sheridan show, 1923, with Harrison Ford. And he plays like a sort of land baron. But he's also a narcissistic psychopath. And there's a scene with him and 2 girls from a bordello, and I'm not going to go into what happens, but it's chilling. It's just, and you think he's going to do one thing, and then he does something else that's even worse, and it's just like, oh my god, this guy is a monster. And Dalton's never got to play a role like that, at least not. He played a villain in Rocketeer, but that's like a Disney movie. This is like a proper hardcore villain, and you can see he's absolutely loving it, because it's the sort of role that normally no one would have given him. So yeah, I was very impressed with him in 1923. Strongly recommend that show. Incidentally, I'm just trying to find a picture of the younger actor.
Yeah,
the younger actor's the one I've met. Yeah, here he is. He's in the back. It's Ben Miles. Can't remember where I met Ben now, but I did meet him somewhere.
And he was in Andor, right? Right, Lance?
I think you might be right. Didn't he play some sort of rebel or something?
He plays a banker to Mon Mothma.
Yeah. He's in the that's right. He's in the sort of political scenes. That's a world you're very familiar with.
Yes, and there he is on the left, right, Lance?
Yeah, he's right behind Jared Harris, and
quite dashing, quite attractive. You know, any young woman would find this man incredibly attractive. I can see how she felt. You know, of course, this is the actor, but I understand how.
Well, if you
create that passion that Margaret had, and you can see it through here.
Let's see if we can get a picture of the real guy up, because I can remember him quite clearly, and he is. I mean, he was, because of course the sad thing is he dies of cancer, doesn't he? I think in the if I remember rightly. It's like they almost have a chance to be together, but then they don't, you know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what as well. Now this is interesting, is Princess Margaret in her youth, when she was in love with this guy. I've got to tell you, she's the spitting image of my mum.
Oh my goodness.
I just noticed that. Yeah. I'm sure we're not related, but they do look remarkably similar. I'm just trying to get a large. Okay, well, we'll have to settle for lots of small pictures, and I'll point them out, because if I click on links, all sorts of nonsense comes up. But yeah, I don't know if I've got a picture of my mum handy to do a comparison with, but this is the real guy.
Mm-hmm. He was quite dashing.
Yeah, so actually that's an IMDb one. So there you go.
He looks like a James Bond character. He looks awesome. I mean
he's not Ben Miles, very well cast. So in this side by side shot here, I've got a photograph of my mother with that exact same haircut, and she's got facially her face is very, very similar to Margaret. so they look so much alike. And then this is Margaret when she was older. Of course, and I guess ultimately, I mean, their love didn't exactly go unrequited, because it's known that they did have an affair. That's absolutely certain. They did have an affair. But yeah, I think that was actually one of the tragedies, almost like an unseen tragedy in a way, that she didn't get the man of, the love of her life necessarily. And then I think that the Queen did get the love of her life, but she lost him when she became Queen. So, everybody's. This is the thing about the royal family, is people talk a lot about their life of privilege and all of that kind of stuff. But trust me, it's a job that you do not want, because your life is all about duty, and you're constantly under scrutiny. So, you might think it's great to have people waiting on you hand and foot and all the rest of it, but you don't really have any freedom at all. You're a prisoner to that establishment, and that's what Diana couldn't cope with. That's why she broke away from it. She couldn't cope with that. I mean, apart from the fact that her husband didn't love her, which was, of course, a small minor point that she had to deal with. So, do you have a favorite episode?
That is so hard.
So, favorite season 5, would it be an episode from season 5, maybe?
I have to think about it. I haven't taken a look at the show for so long.
Let me.
The seasons, but
yeah, well, you probably watched it this time last year when it was. I mean, to recap the episodes. So it's really about, I guess, the kind of the downfall of the marriage of Charles and Diana, and then a lot of that season is also about justifying the continued existence of the royal family, because in the 90s is when there was a lot of people that started disliking them. So the first episode is about the Royal Yacht Britannia, and whether it can be kept, and they're going to have to get rid of it because it's costing the country too much money. The second episode is Andrew Morton writing the tell-all book about Diana's life. That was a big scandal, huge scandal, because that's the first time anyone had ever written a book about the royal family, that was a scandalous type of book. Then the third episode of season 5 is the introduction of Mohammed Al Fayed. I really like that episode, because I did that whole thing about his childhood.
It was spectacular, wasn't it, Lance?
Yeah, it was really good, because I wouldn't have expected them to sort of have a 20-minute sequence about him growing up, but I thought it was really good that they did that and showed.
And they didn't have to at all, right?
No, I'd definitely give them big props for that. They turned him into a bit of a pantomime villain later, but he wasn't best served by the script. But then episode 4, Annus Horribilis, is the year when everything goes wrong. So Anne's been divorced. She wants to marry somebody else. The fire breaks out at Windsor Castle. That was a pretty good episode. And then episode 5 is the decision is agreed that Charles and Diana will separate. So, and Charles participates in a documentary. And then episode 6 is all to do with episode 6 was a bit of a weird one. Episode 6 was the one all about the Russian Tsars, and trying to establish the where the bodies were buried, and about that royal family being killed. It was a good episode, but it felt a bit kind of like it was in another show. Don't know if you remember that one.
I do remember it. And one of the most striking parts about the episode was there's a scene where they're taking a group photo, right, Lance?
Yeah.
And the Russian party, when I say the party, the Russians are talking in Russian near the Queen, saying things that would be considered somewhat private. and are not the nicest things to say about, the royals. And I thought that that was very daring to put that in. It was, I think for imagery purposes, that probably didn't happen, but it did imply that, there was some resentment and ill feelings, even though, the two were coming together. They had a lot of, fences to mend, so to speak.
Yeah. 7 and 8 are very much all revolving around the Bashir interview. There's a whole load of scandalous stuff that's come out about that recently.
Yeah, and that might be, Lance, what I wanted to kind of focus on too, because I think what's interesting about it is to find out, many years later, at least I found out many years later. I didn't know when I saw that interview that she was kind of, and I'm going to say harassed. This is the word I'm using, harassed, from the way that this documentary, or let's say dramatization, shows her. She was kind of harassed into doing this. Once we found out that there was coercion, falsified documents, a number of different things to give her paranoia, which I was completely unaware. Did you know, Lance? Like, did anybody even know this? It came out many years later, right?
Yeah, some of the stuff with Bashir only came out, I think, in about the last 3 years. There was some stuff that came out earlier. I mean, at the time, it was considered to be this groundbreaking interview.
I was shocked by the interview. Were you shocked by this interview, Lance?
Not really, because I think at the time we all knew the writing was on the wall. There was I think it was Sky Television, because there was very few extra channels back then, but there was a channel that did like a 2-part drama miniseries about the breakup of their marriage, and it was actually pretty well done, one scene I remember from that, which was really good, which hadn't even occurred to me, was when they got married and they're on the Britannia ship and it's rolling out the harbour to take them on their honeymoon. Diana goes into the stateroom, and the stateroom is absolutely filled with presents. And she goes, "Oh my God, what are these?" And these are presents. These are wedding gifts, Mom, from world leaders and so on. And she's, "Oh, how exciting!" And she goes to open one, and one of the secretaries stops her and says, "No, you're not allowed to open any of them. That's not the appropriate thing, Mum. But they're for me. I've just got married." No. They're expected, but we don't. You don't open them. And what happens to them? Oh, they're given away. And it's like, imagine somebody saying that to you on the first day of your honeymoon. I'd be livid. So it's just sort of etiquette things like that you don't even think about,
Well, that is true. But I think one other thing that episode, or at least part of the season, accomplished is the fact that I don't believe she would have done this interview if she hadn't been coerced to do it. And I think that the program does imply that when it is revealed that of the intentions of Bashir and the manipulation that she was subjected to, unbeknownst to her. I don't think she would have ever done that interview.
Yeah, there was
she would have revealed.
He gave her a piece of information to induce her to do it, which wasn't quite correct, if I remember rightly, which portrayed Charles in an even more unfavorable light, which angered her, which made her more inclined to do the interview. That's one of the things that came out. And there was some money changed hands somewhere as well. I can't remember all the details, but it's all pretty underhand what went on, and not the way a journalist should behave, But it was that interview that I think he did an interview with. I want to think he did an interview with Michael Jackson as well. Yeah. Those two interviews are the things that like blew up his career. Now he's a pariah. He can't get a job anywhere, and he's completely been discredited as a journalist. I'm amazed. Well, I'm not amazed because things don't happen. He's rich, obviously, but if he was a nobody, he would have been put in prison. But he's not a nobody, so that's not...
From what I understand, the BBC also had to, I think they gave back one of the awards for the interview.
Yeah, that's right.
They had
That's
to
right.
resurrender that. I guess I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Giving it back.
It's there's an equivalent of journalist, like a journalist version of the Oscars.
Mhm. But I think that if anyone were to, it's very difficult to describe this because there's no way to put it in context in 5 minutes. But this program does such a great job of making the viewer understand the challenges that Diana was up against.
Mm. Well, the other episodes are so episode 9 is the Queen advises Charles and Di to get divorced. This is in season 5 still. And Charles and Diana agree on a settlement, and they nearly make amends, but it all kind of goes a bit wrong. And then episode 10 is the Labour Party coming into power in 1997, with Blair making it clear to the Queen that he's not going to fund the royal yacht with taxpayers' money. So the royal yacht is forced to retire. Without.
And Lance, I just wanted to mention, and you remember, I think it's John Major was in this. I don't know if this is true or not, but in this dramatization, John Major is put in a very uncomfortable position of almost having to be the mediator in the divorce settlement. And I found that highly unusual, and I would have refused it. I would participate.
Yeah,
to do with that divorce.
John Major, I talked about this before you came on. John Major is played by the wonderful Johnny Lee Miller, which is a very, very unusual role for him. And he originally was playing Aragorn before they recast him in Lord of the Rings. So can you imagine you see him as John Major in this and you think, Aragorn, Lord of the Rings? Nah, come on. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know to what extent that's true. I'll be honest. It may have happened. It may not have happened. I'm sure that he must have had a conversation with them, because if it wasn't known whether there were any conversations, he is still alive, and he could have sued them if there wasn't at least a conversation. So as long as people know people were communicating, they can make up whatever they want in terms of what was said if it's considered to be a dramatization. But if they present you with a complete fiction, that's where you're on. I think that's when you're in dangerous territory. That's when you can get sued, because someone can come back to you and say, well, none of this happened. So I think one of the dangers of a show like this, and I was actually playing a video game earlier today called Call of Duty Vanguard, which portrays a fictional version of one of the first black soldiers in World War II. But they haven't even put him in the right battalion, and the battalion attack that they have him make is also fictional. And I think a lot of young people will probably play that game and believe that this guy really did these things and was in this battalion that did this particular operation, all of which is untrue. So I think the Crown is careful about the big liberties that it takes, because you're right in terms of a lot of young people who just like watching a good drama but probably don't give a damn about the royal family will grow up watching this thinking that it's all true, whereas they have to remember it's a fictionalized version of history, albeit one that's quite close to the mark. I think it's very educational, but obviously people should go and do their own digging. So with all that in mind, do you have a favorite episode from that recap that I just did of season?
Yeah, I was going to say the one where she has where it's found out that oh gosh, I can't remember now. It might be episode 7 or 8, where I think the fallout from the interview has happened.
That's 8. Diana's having that relationship with that Indian doctor at that point.
Yes.
Episode 8 is when the episode goes ahead. So they film it. So the episode is when they film it. and there's Earl Spencer, that's Diana's father, notes inconsistencies in Bashir's accounts, and he's the one that's realizes something's not right. So we talked about the Spencer family on your stream yesterday, and I was saying that I kind of feel like the Spencer family haven't had enough screen time in this show. I think Diana was very close to her brother, very close. I don't think we've even seen him in the show.
Yes, he is in it. He's in this season, that season that I'm referring to, where first Bashir approaches him, and then Diana has a conversation with him, I believe.
But I think that's the dad. I don't think that's the brother.
Oh, so it's not her brother who he
Earl Spencer. Earl Spencer was Diana's father. So because you have to marry within certain circles in the royal family. So it's got to be a daughter of an earl or a duke or something. So yeah, Earl Spencer. I'm just going to double check this, and then I guess he would have gone on to inherit the title of Earl Spencer. That's probably who he is now. So Charles Spencer, is Diana's brother. He is the 9th Earl Spencer. So he's the 9th person to have that title. His dad would have been the 8th person to have that title, who was John Spencer, and John Spencer held that title until 1992. So you might be right, actually. It might be her brother then that says don't do the interview. You might be right about that, because doesn't the interview take place in 95?
I don't remember the year of the interview, but Bashir knew that her brother did not like the way Diana was being treated. Let's say, I'm paraphrasing, it could be more, but he knew that her brother might have been more vocal about it. And I guess he felt he could approach him, in order to Diana.
I've just double checked that. I was right. That interview took place in November of 95. So you're right. The brother was in it. I feel like, I guess because they weren't going to cover his speech at the funeral at all. This is why they didn't do it. I feel like I would have liked one scene with him and her talking about the relationship with Dodie. Just sort of, is it serious? Something like that, maybe.
I don't know for sure, Lance, if in real life that's what happened. I'm just saying, let's say in this dramatization, that's how they depicted it. So there's a chance that it might have been her father first or something. So just keep that in mind.
Well, her father died in 1992. So it definitely was her brother. You were right. It definitely was her. Definitely.
Well, I wasn't sure. You know how sometimes they might use a character and for the purpose of showing you a story.
No, indeed. I didn't know that her brother has been married 3 times.
Yes, he has.
7 children from 3 marriages, outdoing even almost outdoing my birth father there.
The last marriage I remember that he had was to a woman who was working in orphanages. Worldwide orphanages. That was the last marriage that I remember him having, but I haven't followed him since that time, and they seemed very, very happy.
He married in Oh, hang on. No. That's the second one. June 2011, he married Karen Gordon, who was formerly Karen Villeneuve, ex-wife of Dennis, maybe. Canadian philanthropist and founder and chief executive of World Child International.
Yes, and it's an organization that helps orphans around the world. It was something that she's incredibly passionate about, and she's a fantastic lady.
Based in Los Angeles. So I can see the appeal of, she divides her home between California and Northamptonshire, where her husband resides. So there we are. Well, I'm glad he's happy now. 3rd time's a charm. Again, just if anyone hasn't seen his speech from Diana's funeral, you should absolutely watch it. I would have liked to have seen something there, and I would have liked to have seen a scene. You had the scene with the Queen on the phone to the Spencers, and the Spencers wanting the funeral to be a private affair. Now, the reason that they said that was because they didn't want, it wasn't that they didn't want Diana's efforts to be recognised. They didn't want the royal family to take control of the funeral. They wanted to have control of the funeral. They wanted to have the control of who the guests were, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I
So
knew nothing about that, Lance. This is the first time, from this dramatization that I've even heard anything about.
yeah, I would have quite liked a scene with her brother, the brother's wife, whoever it was then. I think that would have been the first or second wife, and some of the tug of war that went on around the funeral arrangements, which would, that was a big thing. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit of that. We didn't get that stuff. There was a lot of stuff. I just feel that should have been 2 episodes. That one episode dealing with everything up to the funeral, and then another episode settled on the day of the funeral, and everything that came after it. For some people, it probably doesn't feel that long ago. I still, as even though all of my life around that time is really cloudy, that day is crystal clear in my head. And as I said to you on the stream yesterday, I was right at the front of the funeral route, down by one of the barriers, and I got there quite early with my friend. And then after a while, we realized, we couldn't get out because it was 5 deep behind us. So we just had to wait. And we waited a long time because they extended the route, because they underestimated the numbers of people who were going to travel to London to come and, pay their respects. And it's I think it was estimated that 6 million people came. So it was a huge number. Yeah, if you watch the brothers' speech on YouTube and you crank up your volume, you can hear all the standing ovations that he gets throughout his speech outside, because they start in Hyde Park and they reverberate all the way down to the doors of Westminster Abbey, because every road was packed with people. There were other screens elsewhere. So the applause would start in the park and you'd hear it outside, and you could see on the TV people looking around like that, like, because you could hear all these people cheering him. It was quite a surreal moment, and that sets up quite a nice conflict with the royal family. And because this whole show is about the conflicts that they faced, I'm surprised there wasn't something about that in there.
Well, Lance, I have a question for you, and it's a quick one. Do you think that someone who watches this is going to understand exactly how popular Diana was and what an impact she's had in the last century?
Anyone over the age of 30, yeah. Under the age of 30, because she died in 97. So, so I mean, unless you were, I think if you were born after if you were born sort of 1988 or earlier, so you would have been 10 there, give or take, when she died, you definitely would have had an understanding of who she was and the magnitude of who she was.
Do you think this dramatization gives you a sense of that magnitude?
I think they rushed a lot. Yeah. I think they rushed a lot of it. I think they could have done a lot more about her work with HIV/AIDS. She got the money for this building called the London Lighthouse, where a friend of mine, Mike, I forget his surname now. Mike used to work
in the world. We're talking about in the world. She was the one. So I was just curious.
She was the first public figure, you have to understand this, on live television to touch the hand of an AIDS patient when no one else would. And that was absolutely massive. That was global news. It was everywhere. And it changed the face of AIDS. It made more people. There were. I can remember this quite clearly in documentaries and things. There are nurses who talk about seeing that on television, who wouldn't touch AIDS patients and then did so, and there are people who were thinking about going into the medical profession, but were put off by the fact that this was a big virus that was going everywhere, and then saw Diana do that and then decided to become nurses. So just the ramification of that one event was absolutely massive, and they did cover that. I think it is in season 5 when she.
Yes, I think she went
when
to
she
Hale
does it.
House in New York,
Yeah, but
Harlem. It might have been Brooklyn, but I think it
but
was
she,
Harlem, with the AIDS babies there, with Mother Hale, and no one wanted to have anything to do with this
yeah, and
lady.
she set up a place called London Lighthouse. The building is still there. It's a museum of packaging or something now, and and my friend Mike used to work on the front desk of that, and they did a plaque for her, and when it was opened, and upstairs in London Lighthouse, they basically had an AIDS ward, and it was where the worst patients came, and they went there to die. And loads of them are buried in the garden because they were cremated and had their ashes scattered in London Lighthouse. And there's a commemoration book in there signed by all these people, like friends, lovers, parents, all these people that died. And Diana came and she opened that place, and there was all this resistance. Like the locals wouldn't allow the plumbing to connect to their sewage works. Can you imagine that? And they had to have all their own separate sewage works put in so
And
that it didn't connect to the houses nearby.
my last question is it even possible, Lance? Is it even possible for a series to describe and show the immensity of Diana's popularity and philanthropic work that she's done through the years? Is it even possible to represent this in the way that we experienced? I don't think it's possible. I think
No, probably not. It's kind of a zeitgeist thing, isn't it? And you have to have lived it really to appreciate it. It's a bit like trying to teach young people about what it was like to live through World War II. And of course, you and I weren't alive then, but I have all of those stories from my parents and my grandfather and everything. And of course, no end of movies to digest from the period and so on. But people of this, and I was always very interested in it because it was something that, my parents survived and had stories about, and there was movies on tellies and stuff. Getting kids interested in that sort of stuff now is almost impossible, and because they don't really care, and it seems so long ago, and their parents, this generation, they weren't involved in it, so they don't talk about it. So I don't think there's that understanding of the sacrifices made until Saving Private Ryan came along, and that became a huge international hit. And suddenly everybody understood what D-Day was, and everybody understood that 18-year-old men had charged up beaches and been fired at with machine guns. I think there's a lot of people that don't know that Diana did the landmines campaign, for example.
Yeah. And Lance, wasn't it great? I mean, to see it visually to show that, this is dangerous. This is not sort of safe work. She could have done philanthropy in any other range, but she put herself at risk in ways that we haven't even seen before, Lance. It's amazing.
Yeah. There weren't many celebs doing what she was doing back then. She made a lot of things very trendy, we've got a few people like it, but not many, and not that had. I think one of Diana's skill sets is that she was able to move between different social circles with absolute ease. She could be posh and go to posh parties and put on a posh frock, but she would be quite happy to grab a paintbrush, and go into London Lighthouse. And if they'd asked her, would you mind painting the wall for us for 2 hours? She would have done it. And I'll never forget this story. Mike said when he met her, and bless him, he's no longer with us now. He passed away in 2009, I think it was. But he said, you might be a princess, but I'm the queen, because he was gay, So, and that's a bit of a slang in the UK, but one he was quite happy to be called. And there's a photograph of him and her when that joke was said, and I think you can probably find it online if I can remember his surname. But so she was, she could move between any class of people. And because she broke free of the royal family, she was able to do that. If she'd stayed in the firm, she would not have been able to do that. I think it gave her the freedom to do what she wanted to do. So here's an interesting thing that we didn't have time to talk about on your stream yesterday. I'll mention it quickly before we wrap up. One of the things I think that's handled really well with season 6 is were they or weren't they engaged to be married, Dodie, Diana? And Mohammed Al Fayed is emphatically committed to the opinion that yes, they were, which is what he wanted. I think the way that they've set that up so that he believes that is true is incredibly clever. My personal view on whether that would have happened or not is that I think that there's a possibility that their romance would have continued, but I do not think that she was in a rush to get married again. I think she probably would have continued to see where it went and how they got on over a longer period of time. I don't think she was necessarily ready to call it a day there and then. It just have been all a bit crazy,
Yeah,
So
I don't think I'm going to speculate on it because I like the speculation they did in this dramatization.
yeah, it's very well done,
I
that
love that.
element.
The most romantic, funny, kind of almost like comedy, like from The Rebound, it covers everything. There's the awkward call to your parents. There's the I can't marry you. There's the okay, what do we do now? Are we sleeping in the same room? Like it covers so many fun things.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that the night was, maybe if it didn't work out or they weren't, and it was just a fun kind of enjoyable time. I just hope their last night was fun and enjoyable, even with people chasing them. I hope that they had some kind of pleasure and enjoyment that night because, we know this is fully dramatization. I can't speculate about it. I just can't do that. However, I do want to say that Diana describes herself in that season as a Sloane Ranger. And I do just want to mention that she's more than a Sloane Ranger. I know she's being modest about it. For those of you who know what a Sloane Ranger is, she went beyond that realm, everybody, and just completely gave so much of herself without asking for anything in return. So let that dramatization hold, Lance. I can't speculate about it. I don't have enough information about both of them together. If she's kissing somebody, that's wonderful. I'm happy. Let them be. I just want to fantasize that it's bliss, even if it were not. Because it kills me the thought of their last night not being happy. That really would break my heart.
No, I think I mean you can in Trevor Lee Jones's book, The Bodyguard Who Survived the Car Crash, that he doesn't remember anything about the car crash other than getting in the car. But he does outline there because he was with them the whole time in those last weeks, and he does outline their relationship in some detail. And for the most part, he says, yeah, they were extremely happy together. I don't think he confirms or denies whether they got engaged. They looked at rings. We all know they looked at rings. The one that's now hidden in Lorenya's safe. Yeah, so it's back on the 14th of December, and actually, I was surprised to find out it is 10 episodes this season, and we'll be getting 6.
Yeah.
So we know we're gonna get William's story. I think it's definitely going to go up to William getting married. I'm wondering if they're going to cover. Maybe it's going to end with Harry meeting Meghan, which would be a great way to end it.
That would be a perfect way to end it.
Yeah.
I don't see anything more past that wedding that they have. And perhaps I don't know whether they would want to cover let's say the 10 days of mourning of the Queen. I don't know whether they want to cover that. It feels very fresh right now, and I don't know whether I'm even ready to see that in a dramatization. I'm not comfortable with it, but if they do it, I'll watch it. But I would like some time from that, because
I think we're all kidding ourselves if we say this is it and that will never happen. It may not be this production company, but somebody, probably, I would say 10 years plus from now, will basically pick up where this show leaves off. I mean, really, the ending of this show really should be the funeral of the Queen.
Yes.
Because it starts with her coming into power and it should finish with her funeral. That's really, in my view, I always thought that that's the natural beginning and ending. So I always figured that, I mean, the problem was that they were just getting closer and closer to the present day. And at one point, after after William married Kate, there wasn't really that much drama going on. And then suddenly, boom, it just went through the roof, And I was thinking, oh my God, I bet somewhere there's some writers going, right, I'm going to start working on this script now. And I'm sure there's been tentative episodes written. I'm sure somebody put their hand up and said, we can't do this now. Put them in a drawer somewhere. We'll come back to it. So there'll definitely be a show about the Harry, Meghan era. Whether it will be this production company, this same team, probably not. But somebody's going to make it at some time, and you know why? Because that show's going to make a lot of money. That's why.
Yes, and I do want to say it again, that Diana's philanthropy and kindness is unmatched. Let's say, I don't know whether I can compare her to an individual, but let's just say that her impact, her presence had a more of a pervasive effect worldwide than I've seen from other people. So I did just want to mention that in the series, when she calls herself the Sloane Ranger, I'm not quite sure if they're implying that she feels that, I'm just an upper class lady who shows up to things and this is what I'm told to do and this is how I was raised. And I'm not quite sure. Maybe they're trying to show that she was a modest individual. But I did just want to mention that, because when people hear Sloane Ranger, they of course think of the elitist level. And I understand that role when it comes to going to events, making sure you're present, giving donations. I get that, but I don't think that that's what she was referring to. She clearly was much more, so that there's no kind of like misunderstanding, so much more than that. Maybe, the most impactful woman of, as I said, in the last century.
Sloane is basically a derogatory term for posh.
Yes, so, it's Sloane Ranger. Yeah, I mean, it's used here as well in the U.S. So yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not very complimentary. But right, well, we're going to wrap it up there. Damn, you doubled the length of the stream by.
I did, Lance.
The hair's breadth there, because I was literally saying my goodbyes, and then there you were. So thank you very much for coming on. It doesn't matter that it was late.
It's my pleasure, Lance. And I did just want to say that David Macy in the chat said that Meghan will produce the Meghan and Harry biopic.
That's entirely possible. I'm not sure how many people will watch that version. If that's true. It did originate from Sloane Square. That's right, because that's where all the Sloanes used to hang out. Very, very, very posh part of London, which now holds the Royal Court Theatre, and it's really nice. So, guys, thanks very much for coming on. Next up, we are on Sunday now. I've got the first episode of the Nielsen ratings beginning on Tuesday week. We've got a Banshee special stream on the Monday, and we've got a special stream on Mr. In Between, which is one of the best television shows ever made, in my opinion. That's on the Sunday. So I got three. Next weekend, quite a packed weekend. Going on this week, not a whole lot, because I've got quite a few commitments, and I don't have any interviews this week. So I might do a gaming stream possibly on Wednesday. Keep an eye out. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but hey, I may be on then. So you've got positive fandom show coming up with Russ on Sunday, of course.
I do. I have Sunday brunch coming up. And of course, this is Thanksgiving week. So I may not be streaming as much as I normally would, everybody. However, those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving in America, I know Canada already had theirs, but those of you who do celebrate Thanksgiving, I'm just going to wish you a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving celebration. And I'm going to be streaming later tonight on, at least I'm supposed to be on the Bird Network with Robert tonight. So do please try and catch that. And Lance, I hope you're going to join me for the second watch party. I don't know how, it's probably going to be about 3 hours, and then we'll do another 3 episodes later on. But Lance, it was such a pleasure to have you in the last watch party. I sure hope you'll be available for the second and third watch party. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, for the crown.
Yes, it's been such a pleasure.
Are you doing 2 of them? Are you?
I think that's what's going to happen, Lance, because I don't think
6 episodes is quite a lot to cover in.
It might be just a bit too much.
Yeah,
however, you are welcome. I hope you can make it.
I'll try and be there. I'm the weekend of the 14th, going into the 15th. That weekend's quite busy for me. I'm going to do a gut reaction as soon as I've watched all 6. That will probably be in the early hours of whenever. But I'm going to stay up and watch it straight through. That's been the tradition for every season. And even though I'm doing it on my own for the first time, which is really sad, I'm still gonna keep it up. And
well, you are welcome, Lance. You are.
Yeah, welcome. I'll try and come on those for sure. And it might be that I might miss the second one, but make the third one. But if I can, I'll do them all. Always a pleasure to go on with you and Lorena. Even though I'm going to make sure that my seat is higher next time, as I thought I was down here. I don't know what was going on there. That was entertaining. Thanks everybody for watching. Quite a few different people came and went during the stream. I really do appreciate you keeping me company. Don't forget to check out the industry interviews, probably the most interesting part of the channel. And tell your friends, like and subscribe if you've got an interesting creative project that you think I'd like to support. Get in touch with me via the Facebook page, The Outcast Creative, and I'll get back to you. Maybe we'll get you on the channel and we'll talk about your book, your play, your film, your board game, whatever it may be, your comic. Any of those things I'm always interested in. Until then, we'll speak to you again real soon. Take care.